We are back on Get Up. We are exactly 10 days to round one of the NFL draft. So we've put together the 10 questions you need answered along the way. And here we go with number one. Damian Woody, I'm posing this to you. Is Jeremiah Love, the running back from Notre Dame, the best player in this draft?
Yes. Yes, and I would even call him running back, an offensive weapon, because that describes his skill set not only as a runner, but I think you put this guy a receiver, he could probably be one of the best receivers in this draft as well.
So for those of you who aren't paying a lot of close attention to this in the build-up to the draft, that's a very commonly held opinion. I think more people would tell you they think Love is the best player in this class than would say that of anyone else. Maybe some would say Fernando Mendoza. But everyone is unanimously of the opinion that he is awesome.
Yes.
It does, however, beg the question, and this is a big one in the NFL, and I want to hear from Neek, and Dan, I'll start with you. From a team-building standpoint, does it make sense to take a running back as high as Tennessee is picking at 4 or the Giants are picking at 5?
It does not. And that does not mean that the player is not awesome. It does not mean that he won't be great. But in a salary cap league where one of the most important things you can get out of the draft is a player that will play above his contract for the first 4 years, to take a running back at 4 or 5 is a mistake because he is instantly a top 10 or 11 highest paid running back in the league, which means you're getting no value out of it. Your best case scenario is he plays like a top 10 running back for 4 years, and then you got to pay him even more. Whereas if you draft a quarterback high or an edge rusher high or even a wide receiver high, and they outperform, it's a lot easier for them to outperform the rookie contract than it is for a running back. The last top 10 running back to win the Super Bowl with the team that drafted him was Reggie Bush, who was drafted by the Saints in 2006. The last top 10 running back to go to the Super Bowl with the team that drafted him was Todd Gurley with the Rams. So you don't see it. These are great players on that list. But in the case of Saquon Barkley, won the Super Bowl with his second team. By the time the Giants were ready to compete, they needed to pay him and couldn't because they were paying a quarterback. So it doesn't make sense because of the way the league's financials are set up. That has nothing to do with the caliber of player that Jeremiah Love is or that we expect him to be.
Dominique Foxworth, the Titans have a young quarterback they hope is going to be great in Cam Ward. The Giants have a young quarterback they hope is going to be great in Jackson Dart. Those, again, are the teams that pick at 4 and 5. Does taking a running back help them? I hear Graz's argument. You can't debate the money part of it. That's just a statement of fact. How about the helping in the development of the quarterback? Do you think taking a running back at 4 or 5 is a good idea?
I don't like it for the Titans as much as I do for the Giants. And I think Graz's point is a good, I guess a good guideline to go by. But I think certain situations matter. And I think the rest of the draft class, what you're picking from, matters. And I also think that where your team is and how developed they are and how prepared they are to make a run matters. Because I don't think anyone would argue that an outstanding running back won't dramatically improve your team. But the question is your team ready for that type of running back? And who are you? What's the opportunity cost? What are the players or who are the players that you are passing up on in that situation? And I think this year's draft is one that you can argue is a time where you might want to consider a running back like Jeremiah Love over some of those more valuable positions just because his impact might be greater than some of the players that will be available at that time.
Let me quickly give you a potential scenario. If the Titans don't take Jeremiah Love at 4, and the New York Giants are sitting there and they're trying to develop a young quarterback, and they could either take Jeremiah Love, superstar running back, or they could take Francis Maui-Noah from Miami, who is considered to be the best offensive tackle in this draft. Which one helps the young quarterback develop more?
Well, knowing who the head coach is, I would assume the tackle.
Yeah.
Because, listen, offensive linemen are a very commodity. Like getting the trenches right is always the best thing to do if you want to build not only for the near term, but for the long term. So if I had to pick, I think the running back is a better prospect, but knowing John Harbaugh, he would go with the offensive lineman. Raiders
took a running back 6 last year. They did not have an offensive line that was in a position to make him successful right away. And by the time he's ready to get paid again, they might just be starting to be a competitive team. So you really have to know who you are. I don't hate it if Washington, who was in the NFC Championship game 15 months ago, takes him at 7. That's a team that's in a different position in its program than these other teams are.
All right, let me move on with more questions. Question number 2, Dominique Foxworth. Who is the best defensive player who will be drafted in 10 days?
Yeah, I think it's Ruben Bain. I've been trying to talk myself out of Ruben Bain because of his arm length and how he's a low-end outlier in that way. But the more you watch him play, the more impressed you are. If you can put that out of your mind and see him up against NFL-caliber tackles in college, and he is dominating them week in and week out, I think he's the best defensive player in the draft right now.
You were an offensive lineman, Damian Woody. The question mark on Ruben Bain, Neek just talked about it, is that he has shorter arms. So he's not the prototypical defensive end the way someone like David Bailey might be. How big a factor is that? Because Ruben Bain's production, everyone watched them, Miami go all the way to the championship game. On the field, he was an unstoppable force.
I think I think it's a legit, it's a legit deal about the arm length. Being a guy that played all the positions on the offensive line and playing tackle, like that's an advantage. When you don't have the arm length to get inside of me, that creates an issue. I understand he dominated on the collegiate level, but in the pro level, when you're dealing with guys every week who have like tree trunks for arms,
right,
like it will present a problem for him. I don't think, I think he'll adjust his game, but it will present issues for Ruben Bain.
And so who's your number one player in this draft on the defensive side?
I had David Bailey.
Yep.
Because I think David Bailey, like, this dude comes ready-made. I think he's the best pass rusher in this draft. I think his, like the arm length and all those type of things matches up, for the NFL. So I give him the slight edge.
Yeah, he and Arvell Reese are expected to go 2 and 3 in either order. We'll wait and see. And Graziano, throw one more name in this because the NFL is in love with one linebacker.
Well, Sonny Styles
Yes.
from Ohio State. And he's the do-it-all, plug-and-play kind of, quarterback of your defense kind of guy. But it gets to that same argument about positional value. If you're drafting this high, a guy that doesn't sack the quarterback doesn't necessarily carry as much value because in the NFL, those guys don't make as much money.
He's much more of a pure off-the-ball linebacker.
Right.
For those who are wondering, well, can he become the next
Fred Warner?
Yes, that's who he can become. But what he's not going to become is the next Micah Parsons.
Correct.
That's what he's not going to be, is all of a sudden someone who's rushing the passer like crazy. So we'll see. Those are 2 of the 10 questions you need answered. We're 10 days to the draft. We have the other 8 still on the way. We'll also get to this. The doctor is out.
We are less than 12 days till the NFL draft in Pittsburgh and still many more questions than answers. It's exactly why we have our NFL draft analyst, Jordan Reed, with us. Jordan, the consensus is the top 2 quarterbacks will be Mendoza at 1 and then Ty Simpson the second one. But after that, who and when is anybody's guess. Who's the third QB on your board and where should they be taken?
Yeah, Kevin, the biggest question that enters the second day of the draft really is where's the third quarterback going to come off of the draft and who exactly is it? I would bet it would be Garrett Nussmeier, the quarterback out of LSU, just because if you go back to the 2024 season, he was a player that I liked coming into the year. And if you think about it, a lot of people thought, myself included, that he had the potential to be a first-round quarterback. But at LSU, things just didn't work out. There was a lot of things that they could not get going there. But the reason why I like Garrett Nussmeier is just because of the throws that he's willing to make. He's a very smart and accurate quarterback, and he loves to take shots down the field as well. So whenever you're a mid-round quarterback like that, you have to take somebody that is willing to make some throws down the field, who's also accurate and very smart as well. And Garrett Nussmeier checks a lot of those boxes.
Battled an abdominal injury last year, but like you said, 2 years ago, threw for over 4,000 yards. Jordan, day 2 is still a fertile place for impact players. Quinshon Judkins, Travion Henderson were day 2 players last year. Give us 3 players you project to make an impact that could be taken after the first round.
Yeah, Kevin, there's a lot of depth in this year's class, and you named 2 instant impact running backs from a season ago. How about another one this year in Notre Dame running back Jadarian Price? Jeremiah Love gets a lot of the love, and rightfully so, no pun intended right there. But the backup behind him, Jadarian Price, is another player that was a huge impact for the Fighting Irish a season ago. I believe he's going to end up going in the second round. There's a lot of question marks about this running back class, but the clear-cut top 2 guys, along with Love, is Price. I think he's going to come off of the board in the middle of the second round. The Minnesota Vikings at number 49 overall is one team that makes a lot of sense, but I would be surprised if he gets past the Seahawks at number 64 overall at the end of the second round. Moving on to my next player, this is a player that I am absolutely in love with, and it is Emmanuel Pregnon, the big guard out of Oregon, transitioning over from USC last season. He played both sides, both guard spots for Oregon a season ago, as steady as they come. He's rock solid, really strong hands, a guy that is a bully in a phone booth all the way, really good short area quickness as well. I think he makes a lot of sense at the back end of the first round to the Seattle Seahawks. He definitely is their type, but also the Chargers as well at number 55 overall. He's another player that makes a lot of sense for them. Now, transitioning on to my last player, it is Ted Hurst, the wide receiver out of Georgia State, another player that has just made a monumental rise throughout the pre-draft process. He is one player that I think is going to end up going in the middle of the second round to the beginning of the third round. That would not be surprising at all. A team that I spoke to said they wouldn't even be surprised if he goes at the beginning of the second round as well. So Ted Hurst is somebody that is to keep an eye on over the second day of the draft. I think that's where he ends up going.
Hurst began his career at D2 Valdosta State. And by the way, no player in Georgia State history has ever been drafted higher than round number 6. Great insight from Jordan Reed. Jordan, thanks.